In this video lecture, we are going to explore qualitative research in social science. There are many types of qualitative research, but we will explore some of the most common types in this lecture. You should already have a general understanding of how this approach to research is different from quantitative methods based on previous handouts, readings, and lecture videos for this course. Qualitative research methodology is based on the naturalism paradigm. Refer to the Paradigms and Methodologies handout. On the next few slides, we are going to look at some of the main types of qualitative research, and I will provide some examples of research question for each type of qualitative method. Remember, qualitative methods generate hypotheses. They do not test hypotheses. This is a very important characteristic of qualitative research. Qualitative research is a systematic study that includes inductive, non-quantifiable analyses in which the goal is to seek understanding and meaning. There are several assumptions inherent in this approach. First, it is assumed that there is more than just one reality and truth, and that truth depends on the participant's perspective and personal experience. Second, those realities and truths are constantly changing. For instance, the knowledge we have today may not be true the next month, a year from now, or even 10 years from now. Third, qualitative research approaches place low value on generalizing findings. In other words, findings from research are limited to specific time in a specific place and cannot be generalized to larger populations across time and location. In addition to the assumptions, there are several key characteristics key to qualitative research. Qualitative research is used to generate hypotheses, not test them. Again, this is a very inductive approach in which we use observations to generate hypotheses and theories. Unlike quantitative methods where the instrument is a standardized or non-standardized instrument, you, the researcher, are the instrument. This means that the instrument in a qualitative methods approach is your brain as a researcher used to interpret meaning from participant data. In addition, qualitative methods are different from quantitative methods in that the data collection, analysis, and interpretation of data all happen at the same time. Whereas in quantitative methods, these steps are more sequential. For example, first you collect data, then analyze, then interpret your output file. Typically, SPSS does not analyze qualitative data for you. There are other software programs that can help you in qualitative analyses, such as NVivo or Nudist, but often in basic research, you can use paper and pen or Microsoft Word doc to complete your qualitative analysis. Let's talk about some common types of qualitative research. The first is field research. This kind of research takes place in the participant's natural setting, emphasizes social interaction, and the researcher immerses his or herself in the participant's social world through observation and active participation. A research question using this type of approach might be, what are the rites of passage during the lifespan of X tribe in Y village in Tibet? Ethnography is also an important type of qualitative research method. This type has many similarities to field research, but is more culturally based. The goal here is to describe a way of life for a specific culture, and key cultural events and activities are observed. A question using this type of approach might be, what is the initiation process into the MS-13 gang in El Salvador? Ethnomethodology is another type of qualitative research approach. This approach allows us to research how a culture uses folk knowledge to describe their social world and how the culture uses words to construct their social world over time. For example, here you see photos of La Llorona. In Spanish, this means the woman who cries. There have been several movies made about this woman, for example, The Blair Witch. La Llorona is the legend of a woman who drowns her children in the river, and her ghost is seen when night falls, walking up and down the river, crying for her children. Some say this legend is a story that is a means for social control to make sure children are scared enough to come home when it starts getting dark outside. A research question here might be, how does the legend of La Llorona, the woman who cries, impact behavior among pre-adolescents in Jalisco, Mexico? Conversational or discourse analysis is another type of qualitative research. This type focuses on transcribing natural conversations, analyzing every word that is in that conversation, including the pauses and ums. There is a special interest in how power transpires in those conversations between people. On the left, you see a doctor talking with her patient. A research question here might be, how do doctors manage communications with transgender patients? To the right, you see a couple in conflict. A research question here might be, how do verbally abusive women transition to physical abuse of a male partner? Life histories are especially interesting and are much like a super detailed biopsychosocial assessment. A life history is either a written or oral retrospective account of the participant's life as told and understood by that person. The image you see here is a documentary photograph from the Alzheimer's Project, in which a favorite photo of the person's youth is superimposed onto their current picture. A research question here might be, what is the experience of the first African American college graduate in Mobile, Alabama? Grounded theory is another type of qualitative research approach, and its primary purpose is to generate theory. Here you see a documentary photograph of a death row inmate. A research question here might be, how do death row inmates communicate before execution? The goal here might be to analyze death row inmates' last words, and that analysis could generate a new theory about death or dying. The final type we're going to discuss is called content analysis, in which you analyze data for themes. This is something we have already practiced in the first lab with the Parents' Needs Assessment. If you remember, you each conducted a brief content analysis on themes that emerged from parent responses on item number 10 of the Needs Assessment in Lab 1. A research question here was, what are the needs of the parents during parent meetings at Wonka Middle School? We have discussed the common types of qualitative methods used for qualitative research. This inductive approach has many strengths, including helping generate new knowledge and theory. However, because it is subjective, it also has its criticisms, especially from the positivists. These are some of the major criticisms of qualitative methodology here. Because statistical tests are not used on qualitative data, there is no statistical significance that can be determined with SPSS regarding relationships or differences between variables. It is also very difficult to determine reliability and validity with qualitative data. Since the researcher is the instrument is biased, if you will, when interpreting data because of life experience, education level, personal biases, etc. This is what we call reflexivity. There is also a danger of the researcher experiencing secondary traumatization, especially conducting and listening to conversations or making observations, researching interpersonal violence, etc. Also, in many types of qualitative research, the participants are well aware of the presence of the researcher. This awareness may alter the natural course of behavior of the participants, and this is called reactivity. Finally, there is also an ethical risk, especially conducting research with unique indigenous cultures. Your presence as a researcher might alter the course of that particular culture. Imagine bringing some Western incentive to that culture, such as an iPad. Introducing this item as an incentive could quite possibly alter the course of that culture forever. Just like quantitative methods, a lot of forethought and planning must go into conducting qualitative research in order to make sure that the methodology is sound, the research is not just purposeful but also useful, and that the participants and culture won't be harmed as a result of either your data collection, analysis, or dissemination. This concludes the lecture on qualitative methods. Please stop by my office or email with any questions.